Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to this Resonate information session. My name is Deirdre Moynihan. I'm the head of programs at Music Network, and I'm really happy to be here this morning to tell you about Resonate. Just to explain about the format for the session. So first of all, I'm going to talk through some key points in the guidelines and also just explain a little bit about the application process and what the assessment entails. And then at that point, I'm delighted we're going to be joined by some of our partners in Resonate, and together we're going to address any questions you have at that point in the session. So if you have any questions, do put them into the Q&A box, which you'll see on your screen. Don't put them into the chat because we'll be looking to the Q&A section for those questions at the end of the session. So as they occur, as we go through, feel free to type them in at any stage and we'll come to them all collectively at the end of the session. So just before we start as well, just to mention, if you haven't already downloaded the Resonate guidelines, I'd recommend that you do so now. My colleague Holly is going to put a link where you can download them directly in the chat box. And, I will be referring to these as we go along. So yeah, you could download them now if you haven't already done so. I'm just going to share my screen. So that will give you a minute to download the guidelines and we'll get started then. Okay, you should be seeing the Resonate logo there coming up on your screen. So I'm just going to give it a second to make sure everyone is seeing the screen share and we can get started then. Okay, so the Resonate Music Network Artist Residencies are presented in partnership with glór, Ionad Cultúrtha, the National Opera House, Triskel Arts Centre, the Dock, and the Regional Cultural Centre. So essentially there are 6 artist residency opportunities, one taking place in each of those venues. And Resonate provides support for professional musicians with a strong track record in music performance. And so that's a really key point, that you need to be an established professional musician to apply to Resonate. And it provides support for these musicians to devote time and space to develop new work and or new collaborations. And so the residencies, they involve showcasing of new material in both live and digital environments. So the live environment would relate to a concert performance, which would take place in the venue where you do your residency. And we'll speak a little bit more about the digital elements in a minute. And another key aim, I suppose, or primary aim of Resonate is to foster and facilitate relationships to develop between musicians and venue partners around the country. So where are they taking place? So glór is in Ennis, County Clare. Ionad Koltura is in Mhúirne in County Cork. The National Opera House is in Wexford, in County Wexford. Triskel Arts Centre in Cork City, the Dock in Carrick-on-Shannon, County Leitrim, and Regional Cultural Centre in Letterkenny in Donegal. So you can see they're spread out right across the country. And when are they taking place? You'll see July to November 2022. And so essentially development work will take place between July and October, and the dates would be, within those months would be discussed and agreed directly between the venue and the appointed artist. And then in November 2022, the live performances will take place in each venue. So what does each residency include? So for each residency, there is a grant of 8,000, and that is primarily for artist fees and related expenses. There are up to 12 development days, and so 10 of those would take place in those earlier 4 months to develop the new material. And then there could be up to 2 additional days which would take place closer to the time of the live performance. So that can be very useful, if a lot of your development work happens in July, August, and then there's a break, there is the option to have another 2 development days to kind of bring everything together again before the live performance. And this, as I mentioned, the concert performances will take place in November 2022, and they're due to happen between the 9th of November and the 26th of November. And of course, the actual date would be discussed again directly between each venue and the resident artist in their venue. An audio-visual recording of new material. So this is one of the digital elements I was mentioning in the previous slide. So each venue will record or make an audio-visual recording of the new material which you create during your residency. Now, this could be recorded during the live performance, or it could be recorded in advance of the live performance, but it's basically to showcase the new material that you created during your residency. And all 6 venues, the new material, these recordings will be showcased online in an online series, I suppose, to showcase all of the Resonate material, and they will be broadcast on our social media channels after those live performances in November 2022. And if you'd like to check out the new material that was created during the Resonate 2021 residencies, you can check out the online series, which is currently available to view on our social media channels. Another digital element relates to the online sharing of work in progress. And so this is, I suppose, an opportunity to offer the wider public some insight into your creative process and your practice. And so you're asked to create some digital updates during the development period. And what they entail really is entirely up to yourself, and what you feel will best showcase and provide insight into what you do. So, it could be a series of short little video clips or short audio clips. Again, entirely up to yourself. And these digital updates will be shared on our social media channels, to invite the public to engage with your work. And then in addition, in-kind advice and support from both Music Network and the venue partner will be offered throughout the residencies. And a key point to note is in the guidelines, you'll see pages 6 to 11 are actually an appendix, which the appendix contains key information specific to each residency in each venue, and kind of details the specific in-kind supports that relate to that venue and some other very important information. So do take time to read through that appendix and see what information is relevant to each venue. So now, who can apply to Resonate? Individual professional musicians with a strong track record in performance. So these are established professional musicians. You can be performing in a range of genres, so very open in that respect. You can apply either as a solo artist or as a collaborator. So it could be an existing group in terms of the collaboration, and you might want to take your work in a new direction or explore a new body of material, or it could be a brand new collaboration that you're interested in putting together and, exploring how you work together creatively. So again, that is also very open in terms of the type of project or the makeup of the project that you wish to propose. You can propose single or multiple genre or cross art form project ideas. Again, just to mention, do take note in the appendix, because some of the venues will have indicated if there are particular types of I suppose, genre that they would like to prioritize in their venue in Resonate 2022. So again, pay close attention to that appendix for that, because that's very relevant in terms of which residency you apply for. Now, you must be currently living in the Republic of Ireland in order to apply for Resonate, and you must be aged 18 or over. Music Network, of course, is committed to equity and inclusion, and particularly welcomes applications from underrepresented musicians, including but not limited to musicians of colour, musicians with disabilities, traveller musicians, and LGBTQ+ musicians. Just to mention who is not eligible to apply, I suppose slightly the reverse of a couple of points in the previous slide. So musicians without a strong track record in performance or musicians under the age of 18 would not be eligible to apply to Resonate. And finally, just some additional information there. You can only apply for one residency. So you need to look at the 6 available opportunities and decide which one is best suited to your proposal and apply for that one. Collaborators can include other performers, but they can also be composers or practitioners from other art forms, depending on the type of residency you're interested to apply for. So we're going to talk now a little bit about the application process, and you see some images from the live performances of Resonate 2021 there. And as I mentioned, you can check out some of the online sharing of the new material created during those residencies on our social media channel. So it's a completely online application process. And if you visit musicnetwork.ie, you can download the Resonate guidelines, or for those of you here today, you can download them directly from the comments stream. You create an account on the application portal. It's a very simple process, just a simple sign-up process. And once you're set up, you can log in and start to fill in the application form. There are 2 types of support materials, essential and optional, which we'll discuss in a bit more detail in a minute, but you upload everything through this online application form. So nothing is emailed or anything like that. It's all done through the application form. And a key point to mention is that you can do all of this in stages. So you can save a draft of the form as many times as you like and come back and revise your answers, whatever way you prefer to do this. And only when you're completely happy with it at that point, you click apply now. So once you click apply now, you can't obviously re-edit. So just make sure you're happy with the draft before you finalize it and submit it. And then a key point, you must submit your application before the deadline, which is Thursday, the 12th of May, 2022 at 2 p.m. And I really can't stress the importance of getting your application in well in advance before this deadline. As you can appreciate, we can't accept any late applications and the window will close at 2 p.m. So I really would recommend trying to submit the day before, at least if you can, because if you have any internet problems on the day, there's nothing you or us can do about it. But we can try and help as much as we can if you try and submit well in advance. There might be something we can do to help. So yeah, just take note of that deadline and that time, and really be mindful of trying to save yourself some stress and submitting in advance of that date. So once you submit your application, you will receive an automated email. And if that doesn't come into your inbox very soon after you submit, maybe check your spam folder first. And if there's nothing there, do get in contact directly with Music Network at operations@musicnetwork.ie, because until you receive that automated confirmation email, your application has not been received by us. So we will certainly try and resolve the issue if there is any issue there with you. Just get in touch with us. And finally, just to say, you receive results of the assessment by email in May. So again, keep an eye on your email account. So just to cover what the application form entails, just to talk through it briefly. So there are 6 sections. Section 1, very straightforward. It's just your contact details, and you're also asked there to confirm that you are over 18 and that you are living in the Republic of Ireland. Section 2 relates to the residency details. So at this point, you'll select the venue and indicate your rationale for why you want to apply for a residency in that particular venue. This could be comprised of, I suppose, artistic reasons and logistical reasons. So do include them all there. Your performance style might closely align with the programming style, for example, with the venue, or from a logistical point of view, it might be accessible for you to get to that venue. So again, just to outline your rationale for why you have chosen this venue to apply to do your residency. You're also asked to indicate what type of residency. Is it going to be a solo residency, or are you going to collaborate with others? If it is a collaboration, is it a new collaboration or an existing collaboration? What type of genres? Is it single genre, multi-genre, multi-art form? I should say, if you are applying for a a cross-art form residency, music does need to be a core element of that residency proposal. And so at that point, the final thing you're asked to upload in section 2 is you state your primary instrument and upload your CV as the lead applicant. And then you would state the primary instrument and upload a biography for any collaborators that you intend to work with during the residency program. Then moving on to section 3, which is your residency proposal. And so you're asked to outline a proposal of your work, outlining the artistic aims, your concept, who you intend to collaborate with if it's not a solo residency, your plans for the digital updates, your plans for the final concert. So all of that is outlined there. And to accompany that, you're asked to upload a 1-minute video just to summarize your artistic aims, what you hope to achieve during the residency, and why you would like to do the residency. And then finally, in section 3, you're asked to upload a detailed budget. And this really is a breakdown of how the grant of 8,000 will be allocated. And as I mentioned earlier, it is really for artist fees and related expenses. So I suppose a key thing to mention is that it's really important to ensure that all artists involved in the proposal, you need to ensure that they're fairly remunerated for their work. And so with this in mind as well, just be mindful to include fees for work carried out during the development period and also fees for the concert itself. And I suppose just probably seems like a very obvious thing to say, but occasionally people who are the main applicant, they forget to pay themselves. And so just to make sure that you include everything in that 8,000 and that expenses are covered and artists are fairly remunerated for their work. And that is the end of section 3. Section 4 and 5 relate to support materials, and we'll go through the essential support materials briefly in a minute, but just to say, in addition to the elements, the essential elements that you have to upload, you can also upload some additional support materials if you feel they would strengthen, your application. It might be a concert review where it's very positive review, and that might, speak to your track record or something like that. But that's very entirely up to yourself if you'd like to upload optional support materials there in section 4. Section 5 is a checklist for the essential support materials. So there are 6 essential support materials, and you have to upload all 6 of these support materials in order to be eligible for consideration for the residencies. So this checklist is really just a way to ensure, another way to ensure that nothing is forgotten or nothing is missing. So just make sure you have uploaded all 6 of those support materials. And finally, section 6, it's an optional section. Simple research questions like, where did you hear about Resonate? And also, if there's any feedback you would like to share with ourselves or with the partners in Resonate, do put that or enter that into the feedback section. So that's the application form. Just to show you very simply the type of, I suppose, ways you'll be entering information into the form. As you can imagine, very straightforward text boxes or, select a button. You see there in 1.5, the question, are you over the age of 18? You must be to apply to Resonate. So if you click no there, a pop-up message will advise that, you shouldn't continue with your application because you won't be eligible for assessment or for consideration. So there's lots of useful information that is included in hints and pop-ups in the application form. So, just take note of those if they appear. 2.2 is a text box with a lot of them. If there is a text box, it'll have a word limit. So just keep an eye on that so that you stay within that, because otherwise you may have to go back and edit your text if you're exceeding the limits that are listed there. 3.4 is just uploading files and support materials. This relates to the audio and video samples, which you have been asked to upload. You'll see there you can select the file, browse to where they are in the laptop or desktop or whatever machine you're using, and just upload up to 3 files there. You'll see there's a lot of text underneath that. And so many of the questions have, hints or reminders or things like that, which are really helpful. And you'll see there, it outlines the acceptable file types, a PDF, a Word doc, docx, or an MP3. By that, you can conclude that MP3 files are the only kind of audio file types you can upload. The WAV files would be too big, so or also video files would be too big to upload through this particular platform. So instead of that, what you can do is upload a link to where audio files or video files are stored online, like on SoundCloud or YouTube or something like that. So you either upload up to 3 links or up to 3 MP3 files, and accompanying that, you're asked to upload a Word document detailing information about the recording. If it's a long recording and you want the assessors to listen, you know, from 16 minutes and 32 seconds in, because that's the song you feel, for example, showcase the best of what you do, absolutely put that by all means into that Word document, and the assessment panel will certainly listen to wherever you direct them to in each file. One thing to just mention, it's down at the bottom there, if you're including a SoundCloud link, you know, sometimes they can be password protected. If it is a protected file, just make sure either it's accessible or that you include that password, just to make this is kind of the only opportunity really for the assessment panel to be able to listen to and view your work. So just make sure it's showcase the best of what you do and that it is accessible so that they can assess and get a chance to listen to you. So that's just an example of how you will be uploading files. And then finally, at the very end, when you get to the end of the application form, you'll see there you can click on the Save Draft option as many times as you like. And only when you're 100% happy with it, you can click I agree with terms of use and hit Apply. So that is the application form. Just kind of go through the essential support materials. They are we've referenced all of these earlier, but your CD can be up to 2 A4 pages, biographies of any collaborators, if it's not a solo residency, up to 1 A4 page. The outline of your proposed program of work is an essential support material, as is the short statement outlining why you would like to do a residency in your chosen venue. The 3 audio video samples that we just spoke about are an essential support material. The 1-minute video clip summarizing your aims of the residency. And finally, the 6th essential support material is your residency budget. Now just a brief look at the selection criteria and the assessment process. So the selection criteria are really important because these are the criteria which the panel will use to assess your application. So just be really mindful that you address all 4 of these criteria when you are putting together your application. So the first, which is 50% of the assessment, is the artistic quality and track record in music performance of the main applicant and any collaborators. The quality and coherence of your artistic proposal is another one. Compatibility with the venue. And finally, the feasibility of your proposal. And feasibility, you know, would be that, of course, your proposal, you know, of course, would be ambitious, but just make sure it's achievable and realistic within the time frame and within the budget as well. You know, that might, you know, you might be need to think about the scale of your project when you think about the feasibility as well. And yeah, so just be really mindful of those selection criteria, because as I said, that is how the panel will assess all applications. So the assessment process, so each residency, there will be a panel who will consider the applications received for that particular residency. All applicants, successful and unsuccessful applicants, will receive notification by email. You can request feedback for 4 weeks following the communication of the results, and that can be really useful, you know, to inform, I suppose, future applications. Just very useful to get feedback from the panel, so do feel free to get in touch and request that. And then just to mention that Music Network and each venue partner reserve the right not to appoint a residency musician and to pursue a different selection process if none of the applications received are deemed suitable for the residency applied for. So finally, just some tips for applicants. I suppose a lot of these seem very, very obvious, but it's no harm to mention them because I suppose they're there for a reason. But, you know, obviously take time to read the guidelines carefully, and in particular, as I mentioned, the appendix at the end of the guidelines, pages 6 to 11. Really important to don't assume, you know, of course you may be a very well-known artist, but don't assume that assessors are familiar with your work. You know, they can only assess based on what you submit. So just keep that in mind. And as it says in the next point there, ensure that these recordings, you know, offer the best representation of your work. And as you'd expect, you know, keep the information in the application clear and concise and relevant. Submit in advance of the deadline. I guess it's, again, they're all very obvious, but just try and keep them in mind so that you don't get caught out and you're not disappointed, you know, or thwarted on the day by any technology issues. So yeah, I think we've come to the point where we can answer some questions you may have now. As I mentioned, you can type your questions into the Q&A and we'll address them all. If there's any questions afterwards, you can contact Music Network on operations@musicnetwork.ie, or you can phone Music Network at 01 475 0224 from Monday to Friday. We'll be very, very happy to answer your questions then as well. So I'm going to stop my screen share now, and I'm going to introduce our partners who have joined us. So if you just give me a second to stop the screen share, we'll have some faces joining us on the screen, and we'd be very happy to answer any questions you have. So let me just adjust the view here. So good morning, everybody. I'd just like to introduce everybody here. We have Leonie Riada. Sorry, you might see us on different. I'm going around as I see it on my screen. Leonie Riada from Ionad Cultúrtha in Mhúirne, Orla Flanagan from Glór in Ennis. We've Ruth Carroll from the Dock in Carrick-on-Shannon, Tony Sheehan from Triskel in Cork City, Aisling White from the National Opera House in Wexford, and Jeremy Howard from the Regional Cultural Centre in Donegal. And sorry, we also have Niamh from Glór as well. Hello, Niamh. So thanks very much to everybody for joining us. I don't know if anyone would like to say anything before sorry, Leah, absolutely.
Yeah, Gurmagat, and great to see all these faces. I'm only recently appointed to the Ionad Koltura here. I will be muting very soon because we have a day of health going on in the school, which is terrific. So there's bouncy castles and sumo wrestling suits and all kinds of madness going on behind me. And it's wonderful to see such spirit really in the place. Just one thing I wanted to add before I mute. I would think that whoever is applying specifically for the Ionad needs to take note that we are in the glór. And so it's a huge help for us if whoever in their application considers that and what value you're going to bring, particularly in terms of language, because that's so important to us here in the Ionad, perhaps not as strong in the other areas, but do please consider that it is a glór. So that's just one of the key considerations for the Ionad, but best of luck to everybody who's applying. And I really look forward to it. It's a fantastic, fantastic program. Gurmagav.
Thank you, Gurmagav, Leah. Thank you very much. Is there anything anybody else would like to mention in relation to their residency before we kick into the questions? Or no? Okay. Okay. I'm just going to. So, first question we have here: what do development days involve, and what differentiates those 12 days from the other days? From July and October of the residency. So I think, sorry, I might just start addressing that first in that I think there might be some confusion there, Polly, who submitted that question, that the development days during July and October are comprised of those 12 days. So there's 10 days, up to 10 days, which would happen between July and October, again, to be discussed individually with each partner, and then 2 days potentially closer to the concert time in November. So that would be the 12 days. I don't know if anyone would like to add anything to that there.
Sorry, Deirdre, can I just say from the National Opera House here that because of the annual Wexford Festival Opera, I don't have any available rooms in September and October because the festival are using the house fully for rehearsals. So any development days in Wexford would have to be in July and August. So hopefully that works for people. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's good to note. Any other kind of points on that question, or kind of directing in relation to months? Or okay, we can just, I think all of those would be just discussed with each partner, you know, when you're the appointed artist. Okay, I think that's, so hang on now, I click answer live and that disappears. Yes. So the next one, from Polly again, does a supporting musician count as a collaborator, or is there another field to mention them in? Well, supporting, you know, all, absolutely all collaborators, they could be supporting, they could be musicians, they could be composers, they could be other art forms. You know, we had a wonderful range of collaborators, I think, didn't we, for Resonate 2021. So really, there's, you know, a collaborator can be a musician, a composer, another art form. I mean, it depends, as I said, each appendix, in the appendix, each venue has outlined if they're, you know, what they'd like to prioritize. So I guess in terms of collaborators, that'd be just something to keep in mind. Again, I'm not sure if there's anything additional people might want to add to that, but if anyone wants to jump in, do feel free to do that. Okay. Can the collaborators be non-residents in Ireland? Will then be answering all the questions. Would someone else like to take that one, or I'm happy to keep going too, but I'm conscious you're just as well able to answer as I am, so I don't want to be sitting here talking and ye not contributing. So can the collaborators be non-residents in Ireland? I suppose our usual, like the actual guidelines are that you need to be resident in Ireland. I suppose it doesn't mean that you couldn't invite someone to take part, I suppose, outside of Ireland, but, you know, logistically and feasibility and all of that needs to be taken into account, would be our take on it. I mean, what would anyone have any particular take on that from their particular venue?
No, I think you're right. I mean, the grant is only, well, it's a lot, it's 8,000, but you want to use that as best you can. So it makes sense, I think, for everybody to be resident in Ireland, doesn't it? I think from a logistics point of view, financial point of view.
I guess financially and logistically, but of course, absolutely, I agree, Aisling. And then I suppose the artistic point of view, if it makes sense, you know, artistically for what you're hoping to achieve, I think as long as you can make it work within the budget and the feasibility, you know, it really depends on scale and a lot of things. But I suppose our primary aim is artistic, but it needs to be, as Aisling said, you know, realistic and feasible. So I suppose you kind of need to weigh all those things up, would be what I would think.
Can I just add to that as well, Deirdre? Perhaps, you know, if you're looking at something from a digital platform, then I can't, you know, it could be something that you could work into it from an international perspective, because obviously digital platforms travel and it has no borders in that regard. But certainly I think the primary residency needs to be located somewhere on the island that can travel to the venue, obviously, and get a sense of what the venue is about and what the culture of that particular area is about and what you want to bring to it. So but however, I don't think it should limit it in terms of whatever digital support you want to get, if that's any help.
Yeah, absolutely, Leah, absolutely, yeah. So I suppose it comes down to what we're saying, the artistic rationale for it and whether it's feasible to facilitate someone from coming from outside of Ireland. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. Obviously the core person has to be from Ireland, but other collaborators could travel from abroad. So let's just, then when uploading audio video materials, can we upload 2 MP3s through the application and then link to a third video on YouTube? Absolutely, that's no problem. It can be a mix of links and uploads. Can we get some examples of previous successful applicants and what they did in these venues? As I mentioned earlier, the online series are available to view online. So you could certainly get a sense from viewing the online series, which showcases the new material. I mean, would anyone like to share anything about, you know, the applicants that were, the awardees, the resident artists that were in their venue? It was a very diverse group. Yeah, Tony, fire away.
But just to make the general point to everybody that look, you boil all this down to some very simple principles. If the idea is really good, if it's feasible to do somehow, right, and you can make the case that it's feasible to do, and you can do it for $8,000, then that is the best application you can possibly present, along with good quality materials. So after that, I mean, I know for Triskel, it was the idea came first. Other things were logistics that you tried to figure out. So if the days were consecutive, if they were 1 day a week, if you couldn't do them all together, if you had to sometimes go on Zoom, we didn't really care about that, because we figured that artists themselves and collaborators would figure out how to do that. What was a primary concern to us was that, well, that the development was actually taking place, and that it was progress, and that they were happy, and that they felt they could come to us, you know, if they needed support around it, and that we had planned everything in good time and in good order, so that we did a fantastic premiere night. And really, it's really that it's the quality, it's the art, and after that, it's just how to deliver it as best as possible. Those are the two simple principles, really.
Yeah, I think that's all very well summed up, Tony. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Great. Possibly the next as well are the development days, like some like 1 day a week. Does it depend on the centre you apply to? I think Tony addressed that. Be on what for yourself, it would be worked out and go along. So does a collaborator have to be present at the residency venue? For example, someone adding or editing string arrangements who could be contacted remotely. I think we've touched on that a bit, both by Leah and Tony. Would anyone like to add to that from their perspective in their venue?
I suppose, Deirdre, I'm more or less from Glór, and lovely to meet everyone. Yeah, I think, you know, I imagine that there's a lot of flexibility, as Tony has said, around how we structure it. It's not that you have to be necessarily clocking in and clocking out religiously, certainly from my perspective, for those 12 days. When we had Claire Sounds here last year with us, you know, she would based herself here, but there were times she went out and got sounds kind of in the landscape, did recording in the landscape, and just worked with Leah Dawn, who worked on the visual side of it remotely. So I think there's probably flexibility about that, but I suppose then, as Leah said, you know, there is. It's a residency with each of the venues for a reason. So at the same time, we don't want everything to happen remotely. We want there to be engagement in the building. That's helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that was the case, Jeremy, in RCC as well last year. You know, there was some things happened remotely. The core activity was in the building. Would that be correct?
That's right. Yeah. So all the core collaboration was in the building, and I would continue to encourage that, because, you know, from a purely selfish reason, we want that to go on in the building. We want that buzz. We want that, just having artists working here. Now, there was a lot of the artists that they worked throughout Donegal, again, collecting sounds and things like that, and meeting local musicians, and that's encouraged as well. So I think as long as the core collaboration is within the building, but also within the community, then we would be very happy.
Yeah, great. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Then we have a question from Aoife. From reading the guidelines, it looks like new collaborations, building partnerships is a key part of the application. Just wondering, are collaborative applications favoured over solo ones? I suppose what Tony summed up is, you know, if the quality of the idea is there, you know, be that a solo or a collaborative, you know, it is about making your best case, and I suppose if you're passionate about what you're proposing, you know, that all has to come across. I mean, I would think it wouldn't be a case of prioritizing solo or collaborative. Certainly from our point of view, I'd imagine I don't want to speak for everybody, of course, but I would imagine that would be the case across the board, unless anyone has a different take. Yeah. So I think it would be fair, particular prioritization in that respect about the quality of the idea. E-question. Diane, is there a link or place for you of the residencies that were approved? So I guess we've answered that in terms of on the social media channels. You view examples of updates and that were made, and also the sharing of the material, give you a flavour of. And then Patrick, is it necessary to budget for collaborative artists, board, travel, etc.? I guess that would be required. You know what I mean? It's whatever fees and expenses are required. You know, I suppose it depends on how close they are to the venue. You know, that's a practicality. Just needs to be looked at when you're putting together your plan. You know, if it's needed, I suppose it's needs to be factored in, and if not, then obviously not. Okay, so I think that might be all the questions there. We'll just give it 1 second to see if there's any. So we've no open questions. I don't know if anyone would like to say anything before we finish up, or will we leave it there with a wishing of good luck to everybody? Yeah, so unless anyone wants to add anything to that, I suppose I just should say, first of all, that a recording of this session in its entirety will be uploaded tomorrow by Music Network. So I suppose if you have any people who weren't able to come today and, you know, they would be interested to apply for Resonate, do let them know, spread the word that they can view this tomorrow online. I suppose just nothing left to say, but thank you very much for attending today, and a particular thank you to our fantastic partners for joining us and contributing to the panel at the end of the session. And I suppose it's the very best of luck for your applications, and I think we're all really excited to see some fantastic ideas come through, and exciting then to work with you following on from that. So I think we'll leave it there, and thanks a million to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Deirdre.
Thanks, Deirdre. Thanks, everyone.